Sai Culley, welcome to the Rugby Abroad podcast. Absolute pleasure. No, mate. Pleasure to have you. Episode 13, lucky 13 for some.
Beautiful.
Will it be for you?
Mate, lucky number as well. You've done me good there.
Oh, is it? Nice, mate. Nice, mate. Well, I'm glad to get you on a good day because just to get you for 40 minutes. I know you're a very busy man these days. You're up at Durham University. Things must be crazy with all that's going on with the COVID and the rugby season up there. Can you tell us something about what's going on up there?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of student population, it's been a bit of a challenging year. From a rugby point of view, making sure we keep both the guys and the girls as busy and as productive as possible whilst they're in the difficult situations of various stages of lockdown or isolation. So we've been working hard on things that integrate the squad, on getting them proactively working in the community where they can. And to be fair, so much of it's been driven by the students themselves. We've been really lucky as a coaching group to have a fantastic group that are channeling their energies into really positive things. They did a food drive last week.
Oh wow, good.
They're busy working hard on Movember.
Great.
This month. So some particularly atrocious looking stashes coming through at the moment.
Wow, yeah, I can't speak for my own. It's all right. It was pretty bad earlier in the month, but I managed to grow out my beard just in time for this podcast episode, I think. Otherwise, I think I'd be in trouble, at least from wifey. Mate, I didn't introduce you properly. You have been a head coach and involved in coaching for a long time in rugby, before which... correct me if I'm wrong, you were a player at Durham University, actually, where you are now. In the last few years, why it's so interesting to talk to you on the podcast is that your experience quite recently away from the UK, be it in New Zealand or in Canada, and it'd be great to have your insight about the differences between what it's like over there and what it's like back home in the UK. You've got that first-hand experience. So yeah, firstly, how did you end up getting on the coaching trail? What was it that kick-started things for you after you finished playing?
I started before I finished playing, to be honest, mate. I left school and thought I fancied going to play somewhere warm, so I lined myself up with a club in Australia.
Oh, nice.
Post-school, Gold Coast Breakers. Went out there and I thought I'd get myself a job to go alongside it. So I wrote to one of the local boarding schools and said, any chance I can have a bit of a sports coach job there? I got there, didn't really read my contract very well. And they, after I signed it, they contracted me to coach on a Saturday.
Oh,
so
wow.
I ended up not playing an awful lot because it was quite a good setup. I got free accommodation, free meals and coached some sport. But I really enjoyed it. They put me through some coaching badges, put me through my rugby level 1, my cricket level 1. I just got really into it, got a bit of a bug.
Yeah.
And then when I went, I'd already got my place at Durham to come and study sport. So I just took it on a bit of a coaching tilt once I got here. And played in the first team my first year, played some decent Bucks rugby, or Booster rugby as it was then. But my
back in the day,
mate, yeah, 20 years this autumn since the back page of the student newspaper adorned my beautiful mug. But my allergy to gym work and my joy for discovering student life quite quickly put pay to my playing career, and I just got more into coaching while I was here and ended up going to do a master's in sports coaching at Brunel, where I picked up the opportunity to coach their new women. They launched a women's rugby program.
Yeah.
They were looking for a coach from the postgrad students, and there was a bit of money available, so I signed up to do it for the year. And I ended up staying there for 6.
Wow.
It was my first real head coach, build something from the ground up job. I loved it, and ended up going to work for the RFU off the back of some of the connections I made through that, and spent 6 years there.
Awesome. Did you prefer coaching than playing straight away, or was it something you sort of grew into?
Um, I think I grew into it. If I'm honest, I missed playing when the first season I did my second year at Durham. I ended up coaching more than playing. I picked up a few hamstring injuries and I did miss playing.
Yeah.
But I didn't miss it enough to attack the amount of rehab I needed to do and to do the off-field stuff I needed to do to stay competitive at a place like Durham, where I mean, you played against them a fair bit. You have to be pretty good to get into the team.
Yeah, totally.
And I ended up not being good enough to get into the team. So my ego quite enjoyed. I was doing quite well in the coaching, and my ego found that as something better than playing in the twos and dropping down.
Yeah, for sure. No, I guess it's not necessarily like a common path for players to take. It's something actually, funnily enough, I'm looking at now, coming to the end of my playing career. Really interested in getting into coaching as my playing career is ending. I don't know whether it's something you see often. Obviously, you're dealing with younger guys right now at university level, but towards the end of guys' careers, is it something that you see transitioning more frequently into coaching, or is it just the same as when you were younger and you made that decision? Is there a path that's available? Obviously, you've done some work in the RFU.
Yeah, it's a well beaten path now, mate. Since rugby went pro, and then the first tranche of ex-pros came into the game, and more the guys who came in who never knew anything else. So that first batch of pros, 1995 to 2000, they already had careers. They went pro. Their careers finished. They went back to their careers.
Sure.
The first group of academy boys who came in and only knew rugby, I think they've got to the end of their careers and not always been particularly well looked after by their clubs. Not necessarily having a huge amount of options. I think, and a few of them have gone into coach. Quite a few guys look at coaching and teaching as two sort of crossover, a good amount of crossover skills that they can go into.
Sure.
And some of the guys come out of pro rugby and are amazing coaches because they have it. They have those communication skills, backed up by the experience of playing 200 Premiership games or 150 Championship games or whatever it is. That's the magic combo of being able to deliver and having the playing experience. I think a few guys have come undone as they've come out of playing and tried to go into coaching at a level that was maybe too big for them too soon. And it is harder than it looks. It's not just turn up with the back of an envelope and deliver, and the boys will jump when you say, or say how high when you say jump. I think some of the guys find it a real challenge building relationships, being able to coach basics, and that's one of the challenges I think it starts off. You might find is that you very, very, very naturally talented athlete. From the moment I saw you play as an 18-year-old, you got outstanding distribution skills. So if you get someone who hasn't, are you going to be able to teach someone to ping a pass off their right hand when you probably know how to do it just naturally?
Sure.
And I use that example because I once coached with an ex-England player. I was his assistant, and he didn't know. He held his hands up to him. He's a very honest guy, a really good coach. But we had to make sure that if there was any basics that needed to be covered, I had to cover them because he got really frustrated and he'd step in and go, "No, just do it like this, lads. Just do it like this." And he'd catch off both hands and he'd fire like a 15-metre spin pass that was dead flat right into the target zone. And then, this was National 1. And not everyone in National 1 could do that.
Sure. No, I mean, on that point of basics, you spent some time over in New Zealand and they are number one in the world. I mean, we all hear about it all the time that when you go to training in New Zealand, I was over there myself for a year. You were over there for 2, I think.
3, yeah.
3, sorry. And I obviously wasn't part of a coaching setup. I was very young when I was over there. But one thing I specifically remember and something we hear about a lot over in the Northern Hemisphere is how focused they are on basics. You always hear when you're back home in England, when I was back up at Loughborough, that back down in New Zealand and Australia, they're not so focused on, gym work and getting big. It's just more about basics. So I just wanted to ask on that, what's the difference like for the structure of training, the everything that you had to put in? Did you have to change your mindset totally when you went down there?
Yeah, I went down there already as quite an attack-minded coach, and with already quite a large emphasis on doing the simple things really well. So the first club I went to, I fitted in pretty automatically, and I went to a smaller club in Wellington, still in the top league, but sort of middle lower tier of that league. And
which club was that?
Wellington Football Club, Wellington Axemen.
Oh yeah.
So and I came in as an assistant to Marty Berry, the ex All Black centre. Fantastic bloke, really chilled. And he had it, all he cared about was, could you catch pass, could you do the basics, and how good could you be at them? And our boys were pretty focused on that. But as you know, the sheer number of players they've got down there, the cultural significance of rugby means that the guys that make it to the top and the women that make it to the top are the ones who have the humility and the mindset to drill in on the basics. So you can't, apart from the very 0.01% freak athletes who do make it because of something else.
Yeah.
The guys that make it, you go and watch. We were lucky enough to have open access to the Canes and the Lions training. You go and watch the Canes. They do simple stuff all the way through training. But if anything goes slightly awry at the end, you'll see them all break off into tiny groups and just go and work on whatever it was that went a little bit awry. And they'll just go and do 50, 100 reps. Just bam, 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 bam. And then they'll go in. But it's stuff that you would deliver over here when people go, oh, I'm better than this. Don't need to do this. And you watch. I remember sitting and watching TJ Perinara just work on his footwork off the base of a ruck, linking with a forward coming around the corner. And he grabbed like 3 or 4 of the back rowers, and he said, "Right, you're coming with me." And he just set himself up and went bang, bang, and he just put himself through reps of doing like basic after basic after basic. And I don't think we do that enough here. But if that's your way out, there's nothing bigger than being an All Black. So if you've got the pressure of chasing that dream, I think that means that the people who do make it to there are the ones who worked so hard and have drilled down on what to work on. So we judge it from the Northern Hemisphere, and we see the guys that made it and what great basics they've got.
Yeah.
But I think we're looking at it the wrong way around. We're not saying that the All Blacks don't have great basics. The players that make it to be All Blacks have great basics.
Yeah, I got you.
Sorry.
Don't worry. If you got to take it, you got to take it, mate.
No.
We'll do a break.
No.
Cool.
A way of putting my screen back together.
No worries. No. You're absolutely spot on. I mean, I remember one of my best experiences down in New Zealand was a match I played. I was at a club called OBU, or Wellington College Old Boys. You probably remember from
very well, very good
from the
club.
Wellington League, and they were the ex-club or current club, I guess, of Conrad Smith, obviously New Zealand centre, and he was coming back from his international duty and his Wellington, the Hurricanes duty, and when the guys obviously don't have games down in New Zealand at top level, they come down and represent their clubs again. And for them, it didn't seem like it was any sort of hassle for them. It was absolutely natural. Come down, be a leader in an environment full of 18, 19, 20-year-olds and really, really teach them. And I remember the one thing that everyone pointed out, and that I remember specifically from the game I played with him, was his attention to detail around the basics. And he really didn't stand out as anything super special. Like, you look at him on the international stage, he's just that. He does everything that he possibly can at 100%. He does it well, and there's nothing super special about him, but everything's done superbly well, really efficiently. And I just remember that at even when he dropped down to this sort of amateur club level rugby, you could see the difference was there, despite it not being a difference in power, size, speed, or anything like that. But it was this ability that he just had to do everything 100% efficiently, whether it was a perfect pass into the space, whether it was a clean out in a ruck or whatever, a great ball presentation, giving the nine. That those things you don't. I don't think us in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe we appreciate it less. We want to see a bit more someone doing a bit extra, doing something special, doing something. But I guess what was so noteworthy down in New Zealand was the appreciation of those basic skills done at a high level. And I guess, like you said, it's those guys that then the ones that focus on those the most that make it to the top. And in coaching, I think that, like you say, you worked with someone who really encouraged that. And I guess it's key to have those people in the game. And I guess that's what. Do you think that's what you're bringing when you come back and you're coaching in England? Yeah, you clearly are doing that.
Definitely. That's bang on. Probably the biggest message I brought back from down there was you've got to drill in on those basics. Things like just 15 minutes of positional primers before each session, like where you just go out, you get some good competitive repetitions on something that's really specific to your position, and you mix it up, or just make sure every time you visit a training session, you find a way of either reinforcing something you do well or improving something you need to do a little bit better. Yeah. But that's specific to what you do on a match day. And again, I think the experience you had with Conrad, every time we had an All Black or a Hurricane come out of camp to play club rugby for the 3 years, without exception, they were fantastic blokes. You get the phone call on the Wednesday that so-and-so needed some game time. Could he come along? And you'd be like, yeah. And
yes, please.
On Thursday. And not a single one. I reckon we had 4 or 5 times that happened for us at different clubs. I worked at different clubs, and every single one of them turned up as just really nice, humble blokes. Without exception, they turned up early. They came to the office to introduce themselves to the coaching staff. They all said, "Are you sure it's all right for me to play? I feel bad. I'm taking someone's spot." There was no ego, no sort of entitlement, and it's so different to what you come across with some of the academy guys you meet in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's a shame, I think, because it is creeping in down there. Don't get me wrong. The academy process is starting younger, with bigger contracts younger down there, and it's a big topic of discussion amongst the Wellington clubs and the New Zealand development pathway. Too young with these guys who are getting shoulder tapped at 15, 16.
Yeah. No, I remember even when I was there, it was I think 17 or 18 rather than 15 or 16 that the guys were being sort of tapped up by on contracts and stuff, because I remember some 17, 18-year-olds were already on specific set sessions from academy and doing different trainings, training camps and the rest of it. I mean, to an extent, you can say it's a good thing to get involved at that level, but when you're talking about like putting money on the table for these young kids, I guess there's a danger of them losing their heads a little bit, losing their way.
Yeah, I agree, and it's not even necessarily losing their way in terms of being out and about at the wrong time or getting up to nefarious activities. I think it's more just a sense of I made it too easy. I'm naturally talented. I get to wear this lovely Super Rugby stash or this academy stash. Look at me, how big I am, and I think you can lose sight of that edge where you just have to work and work and work to get it. And I think that's what New Zealand rugby's got as its biggest difference maker. The cultural importance of it to the nation, the number of people that want to be All Blacks creates this pressure cooker. A bit like probably similar to sort of young Texas men wanting to play American football. There's a pressure cooker environment.
Yeah.
And the ones that pop out the top are the ones who've got an unbelievable mindset. Whereas I think that if that's given to you too young, you've not had to work from it. Will you be that kind of bloke that goes out and does the extras on a wet, cold, windy night on the coast when you could be wrapped up warm and playing on your PlayStation?
Yeah, for sure. And just moving away from rugby, how was that experience, that cultural experience? You were there for 3 years, you said. So did you love it? Did you love it down there? Was it hard? It. Was it hard being away from the UK, or was it just
I think FaceTime and being able to see people really regularly, for me, makes up for it. I think my partner sometimes thinks I'm cold and dead inside because I'm quite happy having, as long as I have a chat to my parents on FaceTime or my sister or catch up with friends. Yeah. Like WhatsApp and everything makes it so easy now. Like, totally. I know. I just picked up my phone. I messaged you because the first time we played OBU or whatever. Someone had mentioned your name, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, know him." Yeah. But that 20 years ago, that wasn't an option. So sure. I think the world's a much smaller place. Culturally, it's so the same but different. It's so much similar, and then something will strike you as just crazy.
You got any good stories while you're here?
Yeah, I mean, there's some really cool things. Like the first time we played Norths. I don't know if you played them when you were at OBU.
Yeah. Pre-season, I played them in a pre-season friendly, I think, and it was my first appearance for the Prem side. And I remember going to tackle the Norths number 8, and I've had a knee about that big just going to the side of my temple. That was it. I was off, straight off. 3 weeks out, delayed concussion. Cheers, thanks very much.
So for those who don't know New Zealand rugby, Wellington Rugby, Norths is a very Pacifica-orientated club based out of Poirua, which is a western suburb of Wellington. But the first time you stood in the sheds and your boys are getting ready and you're walking out and you hear the hymns coming out of North's changing rooms as the boys bond and they sing together. And these enormous men walk out still singing, hands on each other's shoulders. And the thing is, you see sometimes stuff done like that up here in the Northern Hemisphere, and it just looks cliched. But it is so rooted in the culture, and it's real. The genuine feelings and genuine passion for their community and for their brothers they're playing with. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And little things like that would just hit me here and there, going, right, this is cool.
Yeah.
Little things like. When I was working for the RFU, it was quite hard to get in to see what the Prem clubs were doing. A little bit easier when I was working at Northumbria and we had a tie with Newcastle, but still not easy. But yeah. the moment I was registered as a coach, as an assistant coach at one of the smaller clubs, bang! I had the Hurricanes training schedule appear in my inbox.
Amazing! Look at that.
With, an open invite to attend whatever I wanted. Didn't have to book in. Just turn up. Just go and sit in the stand. That was it. Don't be a weirdo and go and start talking to the players during training. But they've got a little stand next to the pitch. Go and watch. And if you want to have a chat to the coaches afterwards, just drop them an email and say, any chance we could grab 10 minutes. When I got a representative role, the Lions head coach dropped me a line, said, you fancy coming in for a chat? Just, stuff like that doesn't need to happen, but they do it.
Yeah, exactly. There's no obligation there. They could quite happily just keep themselves to themselves, But I guess the culture's that different that it just comes naturally.
It's huge. It's so good. There is a little bit of parochialism as there ever is. So, it was having a Pommy coach one of the clubs was you got some jip. I think one of my proudest moments is one of the legendary ex-All Black that was chairman of my first club, who reprimanded me for being too freestyle in the philosophy I wanted to play. Yeah. I needed to get a little bit more sort of cynical and encourage the boys to play the corners a little bit more. And I was
get more English.
Yeah, being told I was too attacking for a New Zealand club side. I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
But it was things like that with these legendary All Blacks just wandering around their local clubs having a chat.
That's great. How did you find sort of the reaction of the players? Because obviously the players are also coming from a different culture, and as an English coach, I imagine that could have been a challenge per se. And did you feel like was it a successful time that you had there when you were head coach? Did you get the response from the players that you wanted? Were you able to were you implementing your game, or were you like learning a new game plan to implement? And what was that response from the players like, and how did that differ from like what your current role at university now?
I think I did better as an assistant coach out there than I did in my season as a head coach. And I don't know whether that's the culture of the club that I was at. The club. I changed clubs to be I hit the trifecta. I did a season as assistant, a season as a director of rugby, and a season as a head coach.
Nice.
But I think when I did better as an assistant and a DOR than I did when I went as a head coach. I didn't nail my comms with the players as well as I'd have liked to in the rebuilding year. I went to a big club. Culturally, it was about as far away from an English style communication strategy, very heavily Samoan club. And my style of delivery is pretty relaxed. I can get a little bit carried away, but I tend to be try and work with my players on a more empathetic level, and I like to have player input into what's going on.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that those guys probably certainly the senior group players at that club wanted to have a little bit more fire and brimstone, a little bit more of that sort of Southern Hemisphere alpha male sort of approach to coaching. That just wasn't me, and it wasn't a great fit. We got a couple of good performances, and we had a couple of not so good performances where I just the remit I've been given, I think the young players really enjoyed, and the older players were not quite so bought into. But as an assistant coach, where I was leading on the attack and the breakdown at a different club with a slightly different mix, went really well, really, really well. We were lower down. We weren't expected to win many games, but we had some good performances. But we focused in on those guys that perhaps had a little bit of something extra, and how could we get some players into the Lions squad, and how we from that team that was not expected to do much, we ended up with a Lion. We've got a guy playing for Hawke's Bay who's in New Zealand Sevens now.
Wow.
A couple more guys signed to the Lions later. So there's different elements of success at each time. You got to take the little wins where you can.
No, mate, it's a really interesting point you make. It's the first time I've had a coach on the podcast, so it's a really interesting conversation. And listen, definitely when thinking about clubs with different types of players, different cultures, and then thinking about what you need to produce as a coach in terms of how you then interact, communicate, and whatever else with your players. When you're going cross-culture and travelling across the world, you're talking about a whole different ballgame as well. You're not only dealing with different mix of players and abilities, but you're then dealing with different cultures altogether. Like you said, you might have one club that you're coaching that was heavily full of a lot of Samoan guys, and then another club which might have a different cultural input altogether. And that, I guess, from a coaching level, that's a big learning curve. It's great to see clearly that you're well aware of your strengths and weaknesses and stuff, and you can see that how your sort of time went, because some guys are just completely oblivious to those kind of things. You know what I mean? I guess that might be the problem with a lot of coaches. I can't speak for, I only know the coaches I know, but a lot of coaches that I've worked under and worked with have the empathetic side of the coaching that you're talking about. There's sometimes a lack of that at the higher levels of rugby. I'm not sure if that's something you see.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can get pretty successful at rugby for a period of time by being just really dictatorial and just moving players on when they don't agree with you, and organising a team. And you can get a degree of success out of that. And particularly if you've got a little bit of a playing background, so your CV looks good, and you've got some mates who are on the hiring panel, you could get a half-decent coaching career out of it. I don't think it's a particularly fun way to coach. I also think that most half-decent players can smell the bullshit a mile away. And if you try and deliver in a manner that is not what you naturally are, players are going to think you're disingenuous and they're not going to buy in. So I would rather just have to hold my hands up and go that this isn't a great fit, and it's time either some players move on or I move on, and I'd rather that and be self-aware than just to keep hammering away and or trying to become something that I'm not, because I'm not being honest to myself and I'm not being honest to the group of players that I'm working with.
Sure, totally. And I remember that. I've just got a flashback to you coached when I was 18 years old. That was when we met, and you coached a Maccabi Great Britain team that went on to win silver medal at the Maccabi Games. How was that experience? That was quite early on in your coaching career, I imagine. But
it's still one of my highlights, if I'm honest. I think we were very lucky with the group that we had. Like some really nice, genuine blokes in there. And for whatever reason, we came together pretty well, and we built a team that probably would have been nice if we had a bit more prep. We might have been able to play a little bit better rugby. We didn't get the balls wide as I would have hoped, but we were lucky that we had a very good pack. Any pack coached by Aaron Lifchek is going to be effective. And we had some good threat and some experience in the halfbacks, and we had a young 10 that was pretty useful with drop goals. But the highlight for me always for that tour was the group and the spirit of the boys coming together for one purpose. I think the night we beat South Africa and beat USA within 3 days of each other, playing in 30 whatever degree heat. That was a new challenge, and bringing a group of my first adult team that I'd had to bring together for a tour for a competition. But everyone bought into it and they went for it. And I don't know. Again, if you could bottle that sort of thing, sometimes I think you'd be a rich man.
Yeah, I think it's hard to come by. It's that sort of team. The only time I've sort of experienced that kind of level of team camaraderie kind of thing was a year I spent in Spain when my team at the time, El Salvador, we won the double, nice. The league and the cup, and we weren't expected to at all. And it's just that feeling within the team. There's something special going on. They're not necessarily you're the team with the most ability in the league, but there's something going on there that means you're going to get the results, and that's all brought together, I think, at the end of the day by a great coach. I just wanted to touch on you were in Canada for a year, I believe. How that's totally different experience, I imagine, to New Zealand and England. It's not a well-known rugby nation, but how did that come about, and how was the experience?
I was coming into my 6th year as director of rugby at Northumbria. And you talked earlier about coaches becoming a little bit, maybe not being quite as self-aware or as willing to change or develop. And I felt I'd gone 2 or 3 years where I'd perhaps coached the same season 3 seasons rather than done 3 seasons of coaching, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think my game planning had evolved. I'd got a little bit carried away with the number of rep teams I was doing. I was coaching Darlington Malden Park Sharks in the Women's Premiership as well. So
that's a tough schedule.
I was coaching 7 days a week, 9 months of the year.
Wow.
And I just burnt out. And the quality of the sessions I was delivering wasn't what I expected of myself. I was very lucky at the time to have a number of players who'd worked with me for a long time who have gone on to be unbelievable players at the top end. And, we're saying you're not yourself, and I had to have a think about it and just thought I need a break. I need to make some changes. Otherwise I'm not going to go where I want to go in my career.
Yeah.
and I was snowboarding with a really good friend of mine who is now was then just seeing, but is now married to one of the Canadian international scrum halves, Chelsea Guthrie. And so I was going over there and snowboarding with them every new year for the previous couple of years. And they mentioned, there's a club, St Albert, just outside Edmonton. Strong history of English coaches and import players. They're always open to talking to foreigners. Joe Hull, who had preceded me at Sharks, had gone over there, and she had gone off to Hong Kong, and there was an opening. So I thought, all right, I'll stick my name in a hat. Not very much money. There wasn't. I ended up having to go on a tourist visa but anyway, it was. I just needed the break, and I came off the slopes, and had a chat to them over New Year, came back to Northumbria, and I'd actually already given my resignation before Christmas because I knew I had to make changes, but it was nice to have somewhere to go to. And I went out there and I just did Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at an amateur club for 6 months across the Canadian summer. And it was what I needed. It was, I coached in a vest and bare feet almost every session. The only times we had cancelled 2 training sessions, once for a lightning storm and once for mosquitoes.
Wow.
We played 2 out of every 3 weeks, and the 3rd week we all go to the mountains. Old school rugby club. It costs the boys a lot of money to play rugby. They had to pay $450 a season, and none of that goes to the club. That all goes that's their registration fee to Canada Rugby Canada.
Wow.
So it's a big investment. So when they pay that, they're really buying into it. And it's old school rugby. It was a proper clubhouse, and the boys came in off training, got changed, quick shower upstairs. Nearly all of them stayed and had just 1 or 2 pints before they went home. But that was Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah. Saturday, there was a big decking, and everyone stayed after the game to have a bit of a social.
Yeah.
It reminded me why I love the game. And the culture and the friendships over there were amazing. Absolutely amazing. Ended up randomly living with another English guy who'd been over there for years, who we worked out, and we played against each other in his farewell game for his club before he moved to Canada.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so and I've stayed amazing, really good friends with him ever since. We FaceTime regularly to catch up. A whole load of the boys out there have stayed in touch, and it's a memory of a season I'll really cherish.
Amazing. So it was just one of those times that reminded you of why you love the game. It's funny you said that, because I just it reminded me of something. Even though that was a whole season for you, I guess that was. There's occasions when as a professional player you get knocked down, knocked about, and you get into a bit of a rut about whether you want to continue playing, or is there something, should I be pursuing something else? I'm not quite at the very top of the game anymore, whatever. And for me that was the case a few years back, and I know for me that feeling you're talking about of being reminded why you love the game, I can sort of compound that into like a weekend, and it was always often when I went to sevens tournaments and played sevens tournaments, and you just have that pure experience of rugby for what it is, the mates, the drinks, the partying, the sort of festival experience that is rugby, and it's just put right in front of your eyes for you to enjoy, and in a weekend it seems like you had a good season and enjoying the game again, so that's so key, I think.
And for guys like yourself who are coming out of a professional career, unbelievable place to go for an entry level coaching gig, because there's not the same pressure. You'll get some good mentoring of some experienced players who you'll be able to bond with, because there are lots. I was out there. I was plotting how to coach. Trevor Leota was still playing for one of the oppositions.
Yeah.
What a legend! He came up to our boys after every game and had a beer with them and talked to them about what they could do. He didn't need to do that. He's an absolute legend. But for that's the route. I think some more of the players who want to expand their coaching should go down. Go and get yourself a team that's well below where you've played, and just spend your time enjoying it and fall in love with the coaching side of it. and get those little how to plan a session, how to deliver a session, how to deal with both your halfbacks not turning up to training, how to deal with, well, you've got to be the one to go into the container and get the balls and the shields and the cones out. It's not all laid out with 3 kit men, which is some of the stuff that I think blows the minds of the boys that step out of the Prem.
Yeah.
But those countries where, and you say like, yeah, it's not as established as in New Zealand or in England or France, whatever. But there's a genuine love of the game for the people that play it.
Yeah, that's so key. Like you say, they've bought in, they've paid their fee and whatever. And I guess that's not always the case. Even when you get to National 1 level or even at all of the national leagues, I think the boys now have their year, what do they call it? Their subscription fee kind of thing to the RFU, paid subs by the club, I imagine, a lot of the time. Where I think maybe when you go to university level, the guys are still paying their subs. So there's that you get that buy-in, and you get therefore that I think that changes somewhat the environment maybe.
I massively agree. I think travel time also comes into a lot of it. I mean, my favourite thing about New Zealand rugby was my furthest away trip was 25 minutes away.
Yeah,
from Upper Hutt to Ories, Miramar out to the Huts. That's awesome. In Canada, it's a little bit further, maybe 2-3 hours, but still, that's nothing compared to a National 1 schedule.
Yeah.
I'm massive believer that the national leagues is really doing damage to the number of players playing rugby in this country, in the UK. You're having to pay players to play an okay level because of the commitment. They need to regionalise the league so desperately.
Yeah, I heard that they were looking at doing that recently, and certainly with what's going on with the COVID, the crisis, maybe bringing things a bit more regional. And then I heard that, and then they ended up cancelling the season altogether. What's your view on that? I mean, for me, I was speaking to a couple of guys who are National 2, National 3 level players who were who pay their subs and go for the weekend because they enjoy it. And the message I got from them was pretty much, well, we're probably thinking about giving up rugby altogether, just, picking up another sport now, because they're doing it for fun, being with their mates. And these same mates, they've all just been stopped from playing rugby for a year kind of thing. Do you think it's a necessary step? Do you think there was another way around it?
I think it's disappointing to hear that there's clubs not doing anything to help those lads, because I think you only have to scratch the surface of some social media with some clubs, or to look around what the universities are doing with their players to see what can be done in a rugby environment to give the boys. I mean, it's not, you can't do rugby, but there's an awful lot you can do as a group and as a bonding experience of different challenges, different opportunities to come together. I think a good rugby club should be really proactive about that, because that is a huge support structure for an awful lot of young men. For a lot of guys, that is probably their chance to let their guard down and have a bit of banter with their mates and forget about work, forget about commitments elsewhere, and just to empty the tank a little bit, a bit of an emotional release for some people.
Sure.
And if you take that support structure away, I think that's not good. And I think we have a huge, as coaches or as directors of rugby or as chairman or as presidents of clubs, we have a huge duty of care to the young men and women that sign up to be part of our club. And it's very fashionable now for hashtag whatever family. That's your club with a club name. But how many clubs are actually following through with that when the going gets tough for their players?
Yeah, mate. I'm just on that. We've had a couple of messages at the podcast even now that from guys in university situations. They're finishing university. They were looking to have a great season in National 1 and then pushing on this year. Guys playing at the top level, maybe representing England students, and thinking about their first professional contract. And these guys have basically been told, no rugby for a whole season. Now, they're contacting the podcast and saying, well, guys, you're speaking about playing rugby abroad. any opportunities going on on that level? I know recently, last time we spoke, you were starting on a bit of a venture with I believe it was Global Rugby, something to, I guess what you're saying is you want to be helping these players, especially at a time like this, to look farther afield and be able to see that, well, look, there's no rugby right now here in the UK, but maybe there's something for you elsewhere. Maybe there's a league in Canada that's playing. Maybe there's something in the Southern Hemisphere. Maybe, over in Hong Kong. And I think now's the time, if any, where when looking at playing rugby abroad, guys are really starting to take it seriously because they're seeing that they're going to have it. Guys that could be pushing on, and having professional careers in the game are being told right now, well, you can't play rugby for a year. So what do you do with these guys?
100%. I think you've nailed it. And you're coming from, it's fortuitous. We've been having this conversation. My partner, who you played with, Rob Seltzer, and he'd seen something similar in football, but we'd stayed friends, and we both of us shared a concern about what were clubs doing with boys that were exiting the pathway, guys who had contract offers as an academy, been told not to go to university, or had done the academy university thing, popped out, and then all that smoke that's been blown up them. There wasn't a contract at the end of it, and they didn't know quite what to do. And there's a lot of agents. There's a lot of very good agents, but there's a lot of guys who aren't so good. Who will offer contracts and then take a cut of what was already a very small pie. And we thought that there was probably there was something out there to help with the welfare of these guys and give them opportunities. And me, at the time, I was in New Zealand, and I'd brought boys out to play in Canada, but just guys that I'd coached at Northumbria, and then and done the same in New Zealand. We had guys come out, but there were people I knew. So we set up this website, Global Rugby, and it was a chance just to build a little profile, say what you're good at, put some footage up there, and clubs open that up to clubs around the world to click on it, see who you are, that you're looking to go around the world, and they can contact you direct. There's no fee. It's all free, and it's, if some of the clubs on there are social teams in the Canadian second division, but we're hopeful. We've got MLR contracts on there, and we're hoping to have some of these World Series 10 opportunities on there pretty soon as well. Shoot Shield clubs, South African clubs just below pro. Lots of clubs in New Zealand, and the clubs are as often as naive as the players. They don't know how to go about getting young players, and a lot of them have been burnt on players who promised the world and then either don't turn up or aren't quite what they promised. Yeah. So we came at it from both ends, and it's just an opportunity to give more opportunities to young people that want to explore the world. For clubs that might want to bring in some foreigners and give them an opportunity at whatever level. I think that's the way forward. The Globe's a small place, and it'll be even smaller once we come out of this.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, specifically now, when guys are actually needing these opportunities, what better time to have a little experience abroad?
If you're a good player now and you were hoping to go into a championship contract or a National One contract, if you're prepared to spend 2 weeks in the hotel room, go and play in the Shoot Shield. It's unbelievable competition, and you get to live in Sydney for 6 months. Go in on a working holiday visa, and just take the hit of the 2-week quarantine. You will come back, cast iron guaranteed. You will come back a better player.
Look, I mean, this is the thing. Like, seeing the current circumstance, you'd expect these opportunities to be inundated with players, with CVs, and I don't know whether it's people are scared to leave their home or whatever at the moment, but the opportunities are out there still. I mean, you've got hundreds of rugby players who have just been told that there's no season this year, so if you want to play this year, get out there, put your name out there, chuck your CV out there, be available, because there's opportunities, like you say, Si.
I think it's like, mate, you said, be available, be prepared to take a risk, and maybe be prepared to go to somewhere you don't quite want to be to get somewhere where you want to be. You think, I fancy America. I fancy playing in the MLR. Well, we've got some contracts. There's contracts available there, but there's feeder teams for every one of those clubs. So if you can get yourself even just a tourist visa to the States, go over for 6 months, and tear up for a feeder team, and then
almost puts you in a better.
Spend the money on. Sorry, go on.
It almost puts you in a better position at times if you go to that feeder club and you're scoring 3 tries a game, or you're dominating the scrum as a tight head, or every game. I mean, come next season, an MLR club's more likely to pick someone up that's already in the States than someone that's sort of more of a risk to bring them over. Cultural risk. I mean,
100%, mate. And most of them have got immigration advisors on staff, and if you're over there, it's a lot easier to get the work visa that you need for an MLR contract. And if you've got an American grandparent at the moment, that's the place to go to kickstart your rugby career.
For sure. No, but like you say, there's even closer to home in Europe. There's leagues that are going on. There's my league, the Italian league. Certainly the Premiership of Italy is managing to carry on with some COVID controls in place, even if the lower leagues have been suspended till January. But I know, for a fact, there's leagues all over Europe that are continuing to play. So there's definitely opportunities out there. Si, there was loads more we could speak about, loads of things I wanted to ask, but I want to round it up because it's been a half of rugby, 40 minutes. I really appreciate your time, your honesty around your coaching experience, your rugby experience has been really refreshing, mate. And yeah, I guess just the way you're self-reflective as well about your own performances and your own sort of progression through your coaching career. That's really nice to hear about as well, mate. Appreciate your time for episode 13. It's going to be a hit. It's the one that goes viral. Rogan Cat. I mean, get him. No, mate. Cheers, and let's catch up again soon, because I'm sure you have loads more to talk about, and I wish you all the best with the Durham program. I know it's a hard time with getting all the students to stay positive around rugby, but yeah, mate, appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure to chat to you, mate. Can't wait to catch up with a beer down the line.
Definitely, mate. Take it easy. Cheers, Cheers. You can subscribe to the podcast at rugbyabroad.com. Thanks for listening in, and I hope you join me for the journey.